Hey guys, welcome to Bulwark. I'm Sam Stein here with the one and only, the great Sarah Longwell. We're going to be talking about a piece that she has up. So grateful that you wrote for us. It's kind of about, I guess, a reason to be optimistic if you're Harris. I don't really know if that's the right way to phrase it, but Sarah, you looked at all these focus groups involving undecided voters, and you came away with a pretty telling conclusion. Why don't you describe it?
Yeah, well, look, I was just watching people yesterday. Every time there's a New York Times Santa poll, people freak out. It's just like they come out on Saturdays and Sundays and they just like destroy everybody's weekend. And so yesterday, they're like the first major poll in a while that showed Harris down. Right, she's down by a point. It's within the margin of error.
It was a point. I just want to stress it was a point.
It was 1 point, and she's still up in a number of the swing states by a point or two. Right. But still. Paroxysms of grief and unskewing and crossed-out looking. I
had relatives texting, the whole shebang. Yes, we've been there.
I wanted to just weigh in on some of this panic and calm everybody down a little bit, or more just like offer some perspective. And the fact is, we've done 11 groups since the switcheroo, with kind of what I would consider persuadable swing voters, independent voters, the kinds of people who are not locked in. Right. And the number one thing we hear from them, and I've written pieces about this before, although I think one of them was for The Atlantic, sorry, JVL, was just about how, and I give a lot of quotes. I just threw a ton of their quotes in to this piece because I want people to realize that for the section of voters who are undecided still, a lot of them are right-leaning independents, soft GOP voters, and they know they don't like Trump. They are like, yeah, this guy kind of sucks. But these kinds of voters need an affirmative reason to vote for Kamala Harris. And I feel like people just shouldn't be shocked at where we are in this race. And honestly, they should still feel good about the fact that the switcheroo that brought Kamala in, like the thing that she did where she put the Democratic coalition back together in a matter of weeks, because back in the before times when Joe Biden was the nominee, I was sitting through focus group after focus group with soft Dem voters who were like, I don't know if I can vote for Joe Biden. I don't think he's up for it. And like those people are back locked in. They are no longer RFK curious. They are just back. And that has put the race, it's like a reversion to the mean, right? We are back in the close race and we're hitting persuasion territory.
Well, what stood out to me about these focus group voters was that not to a person, but the majority of them were just like, look, I just need to hear from her. Yeah. I mean, it seemed to me just reading their quotes, they were like, I don't want to vote for Trump at all, but I do need to hear from her first, which to me suggests, and correct me if I'm wrong, that she's got a ceiling, a higher ceiling than he does. And it's just about reaching those voters.
That's exactly right. When I say the race is a reversion to the mean, like you're looking at Trump, and Trump is still at 46, 47%. I think in that poll where he was one up, he was at 47%, maybe 40. But like that's where he lives. That's where he lives. There's none of that for her. Right. These types of voters want to know that she's not going to be a San Francisco progressive. And if she can give them that, and this is where the debate really matters, they want to see really two things from her. One, they want to hear some policy, right? They want to know that if she's the president, she's not going to do insane progressive stuff. And then two, there is a little, it's not baked in, well, maybe it is baked in misogyny, but misogyny is more like hatred for women. There's more like sexism. Sexism, skepticism that comes in where they also want to see how she's going to handle Trump, right? They want to sort of see that she looks presidential, that she's going to, how she'd be with autocrats. This is something you hear in the groups all the time is people worry about how women will stand up to autocrats from countries where women don't have nearly as many rights. And so they worry about how those people will respond to her. And so they want to see her look tough. They want to see her express her policy positions. And so she has to do some of that work. That's what being in this last couple of month stretch is about.
I guess the question then is, how big a universe do we imagine this undecided voter pool to be? Because to me, and to a lot of people who follow this stuff, it seems crazy to be undecided at this point in time, right? Like these two candidates, Trump is a well-known figure. Everyone has opinions on him. Either you love him or you hate him. She less so, but she has been vice president. So how possibly big is this undecided pool?
I mean, it's real and meaningful. Look, everybody talks about the late-breaking independents, right? And there's a couple different groups of people. There are people who are pretty high info, which is a lot of the groups that I'm talking about. They watch things close enough and they want to hear a case being made. Then there's the people who are just tuning in right now. They're like, oh yeah, there's an election coming up. Which one of these people? And look, the fact is these are normal, busy people. And for a lot of people, so sometimes people think about Undecided as a category of people that are like, which one will I choose between the two candidates? That is one category of undecideds.
Sure.
But there's also the undecided category of like, am I going to vote in this election? Like, am I going to decide to get off the couch and go do something? And I also think she has created much more enthusiasm among people who were otherwise going to sit it out. But now there's like another group of people who are more low info, more or less like less interested in elections. She's
and we're sort of seeing that, right? Like she's got a, like I remember I think the ABC News Ipsos poll showed like, you know, black voters are way more enthusiastic or more engaged than they were 4 weeks ago, though, frankly, what Democrat isn't, right? But she's gotten the base motivated to a degree, and now it's sort of how do you expand it? The question is like, okay, obviously the debate really matters, right? We're talking about tens of millions of people watching the debate. What should she do beyond the debate?
Well, look, I think she just put out a big, like her website today got updated with all of her policy positions.
But who the hell reads a website? Come on.
No, nobody's going to, but that's what she's got to go out and talk about some of those things. Talk about what she learned as vice president. And like she's been doing a good job of reaching out to these types of voters, putting Kinzinger in prime time. That was good. She's got to talk about the economy a lot, offense on the economy. Donald Trump is still winning with sort of they've got this amnesia where they think they take the pandemic and they put it in its own box and they just think about the good old times when Trump was tweeting and the economy was better. And so she has got to go hard on a positive case for the economy. And this thing about looking presidential, like I think she's got to do a lot more reps in media. She doesn't have to do traditional media, right? I think she's got to get out there with influencers. She's just got to talk a lot more. People have got to know who she is and what she stands for.
Come on the Bulwark pod.
Come on the Bulwark pod,
yeah,
man.
Come sit with Tim. I want to read one of these these undecided voters. This is a Clinton Biden voter from California. This gets like right to your point, right? Quote, I do think the debate will be important just to see how she handles the most adversarial entity that she'll ever encounter. It will be Donald Trump. And that does kind of show how she'll handle general, despots in the world. So it's like Trump is the trial run for this individual. And I guess the debate really is that consequential.
I only sound smart sometimes talking about voters because the voters say smart things that I'm like, yes, that guy articulated this specific idea that Donald Trump is basically a stand-in for Putin or other autocrats. And I was like, this is exactly right. Because what I've heard in focus groups over a long stretch of time is how they're not sure whether or not a woman, not even just Kamala, but a woman can stand up to autocrats. So him saying that is exactly what people need to see. No, she's got this.
Right. And the other ones here, they're all, I guess the thing that sort of surprises me, but this is a little bit predating her switcheroo, is that people like would talk about her as if she were kind of like a plant off to the side, right? Yeah. Like, oh, she's the vice president, but I don't really see her and she hasn't really done anything. Like, how is that possible? She was the vice president.
I think that, well, number one, this is the thankless jobs of vice presidents, right? Like, and you got a boss and you got to talk for the boss. And I think when you're talking for the boss, this is, as somebody who's been a spokesperson for other people, it's like a lot of stress when you have to carry someone else's message. And it's very different from carrying your own. And I think that's why she feels like a different person right now. She's speaking for herself as opposed to somebody else. And I actually think the person she was in 2019 when she was running like a lefty and that, all those Democrats in the Democratic primary, I don't think that was her either. I think who she is right now is closer to the prosecutor and like who she is as a person, which is kind of pragmatic.
That was the problem with her in 2019. It was not natural, and it came off as unnatural, and everyone read through it. All right, so closing thoughts here.
Well, I think people saw her as like a real rising star, and then she sort of disappeared into the vice presidency, and now she's like coming into her own. She's in the spotlight, and so anyway, the closing thoughts are there are still undecided voters. There's a couple different types. The way people break at the end of an election makes and breaks an election, and so she's got work to do. She's got to go clock in, do this debate, and then finish strong.
Yeah, well, everyone should read the piece. I think it's a good narrative corrector because I do think there's a lot of freak out over this time. So if you talk to these voters, it's evident, like the path is pretty evident for her. And Trump is got a ceiling. So the piece is called The Case for Staying Optimistic About Harris. just went up on the Bulwark this morning on Monday. Everyone should read it, share it, and then subsequently subscribe to the Bulwark, ideally in the paid fashion. Sarah Longwell, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And thank you guys for tuning in. Also subscribe to our YouTube page where we post these types of conversations.